Episode 26 of The Rundown, Kyle Stackpole, Redskins.com, here with Zach Selby. And Zach, after months and months of speculation, we've got 1 week until the NFL draft. How are you feeling?
I can't even describe it. I mean, it's like it's almost like you're waiting for Christmas a little bit. You're marking off the days on the calendar, and now you're in that last week. You're in the end game, and I think we can all do. We can get through. We got through the past. Got through all this stuff that we've been dealing with. Got through January to now. I mean, we're here, y'all. We can get through 7 days. It's going to be a wild time, especially with this draft, which is going to be just unprecedented in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, for sure. And if you think about it, we were really talking about the draft the last month of the regular season. I mean, when we played the Giants and it was like, okay, whoever lost would get the number 2 pick and then might get Chase Young. So the fact that we've been talking about it since December and now it's April and it's about to be here is really exciting. And we're here. We're going to recap it with you guys. Just before we get into this, wanted to make sure that you guys are following along, subscribing, commenting 5 stars wherever you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. You can catch us on YouTube as we're both in our houses still, no surprise.
Yep.
Or you can check us out on Redskins.com and the Redskins app. So last week we did takeaways from Ron Rivera's press conference with the local media, but actually – today, on Thursday, Rivera actually did a virtual leadership luncheon. So he really talked to voice of the Redskins, Larry Michael. He answered fan questions. It was a pretty long interview, and he really gave a lot of good stuff. So initially we were going to maybe focus heavy on draft speculation, but he said some good stuff. So I think we're going to cover that today, and then we'll touch on some draft stuff at the end. But just from you, I mean, going through that conversation, going through that interview, what stood out to you in what Rivera said?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, it's nice to get dive in a little bit into Coach Rivera's psyche and see how he's processing all of this, because I mean he's the main man who's really kind of leading us through all this. And as an aside, I will say that he did prove me right on something that I put in the mailbag that you can check out on Redskins.com. And he said that he didn't really necessarily want to focus on drafting a need or like the best player available. It's the best player for that need that the team needs. And I put that in there basically just like an hour before he even started on there. So I think that was the coolest thing I got to see out of it is what he's thinking of, what his process is in the last week of draft prep, and they're almost done. I mean, they've got pretty much most of their plan in place with he and Kyle Smith, and I think they're all excited and ready to get this thing going as much as we are.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because when he said that thing about picking the best player available, like based on need, that's immediately what I thought about, because I read your Hail Mail and I'm like, I wonder if he's actually thinking like that. And it's like you actually read his mind. So I don't know if you're talking to Coach Rivera on the side or something, or I don't know what you're doing, but
we got a little connection. It's still a little bit telepathic, but we're like this. We're on the same level.
I was going to say I'm going to start trusting you from now on. But yeah, I think that what he said about the draft was really insightful, and it definitely made a lot of sense. The other thing was just him talking through their process and how they went to the combine, got all their information there, and they went through their position coaches' briefings where the coaches added their perspectives to what the scouts saw. So they really just finished that up yesterday, and now it's really about refining the draft board. So, I mean, the crazy thing is that all this stuff has happened and everyone's been working from home, but it really seems like the process, aside from the lack of pro days and the official visits to Redskins Park, it's gone on pretty much as planned. I mean, Coach Rivera was saying that he's meeting with scouts, meeting with coaches, using video conferencing technology. I mean, just like we're using here. So it's really cool and really nice to know that nothing's really changed with that. I mean, they're relying on the tape more, like you said, but it was just cool to get inside the draft process and see what they're really doing with a week to go.
Yeah, it's all about bringing as much normalcy as you can get, and especially in this time, because I can tell you now, NFL coaches and teams, they don't like change. Just speaking as a player and as someone who covers a football team, they don't like anything that messes up their schedule at all. And this is the ultimate thing, really. This is the ultimate test of see how they can really handle adversity in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
And it seems like for the most part, they've done a really good job of saying, okay, this is what we can do from what we've done in the past. This is how we need to change things going forward, and we're just going to go from there. And like I said, they've done a really good job just keeping the status quo as much as they possibly can right now.
Hmm. And another thing, in addition to the draft, that we wanted to touch on real quick was some additional comments from free agency. We know Rivera talked a lot about that during the conference call with the local media, but he also expanded on that today and also related free agency to the draft. So, what stood out to you in terms of what he said about free agency and how it's going to affect what they do on draft day?
Well, I mean, he really said that they feel that they filled a lot of needs in free agency that they can, and that allows them a lot of flexibility to do other things in the draft. And I mean, if you really look down at like every single free agent that they've had, every single one of them has addressed a need in some form or fashion. And they're really looking for those starters that can really kind of go into what their system, what kind of system they're building, and it's really going to allow them to build around the young players, which has always been the plan. It seems to me. It seems to me that they want to build through the draft and have good young talent. So getting those free agents that are like cusp starters who are looking to prove themselves really allows them to do that.
Mhm. And I think the other thing was that by addressing a lot of those needs, they can go into the draft looking more of the best player available because they don't have as many
Really.
needs they did going into free agency. So I think that just how free agency and how the draft are work together. I mean, you have a lot of young talent, like you said, and you had free agency fill in some holes, and then you have this draft where there's a lot of young talent to continue building around. So it really seems
Yeah.
like first year, first free agency, first draft. Coach Rivera thinks he's in a good spot. He's got a lot of faith in the scouting department, Kyle Smith, his coaching staff. So now it's pretty much okay. What's going to happen? I mean, we've heard from the coach, we've heard from Kyle Smith at the combine. Who are they going to pick? So we'll talk about that more towards the end of the show.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see what they can finally do with this number 2 overall pick and what they do with all their draft picks. I mean, it really does allow them a lot of flexibility to pick the players that they really want, and if somebody really falls to them at at a later round pick, they can go ahead and grab them and take maybe not necessarily a risk, but like say, hey, we see this player who we've already addressed position X, but we have this guy here who really is good. We really think can change our football team in a lot of positive ways, and that allows them to get to have a little bit of freedom and a little bit of wiggle room in this draft.
Join us for the one-of-a-kind 3-day live stream event made just for Redskins fans, presented by 7-Eleven. Stream exclusive live coverage of the NFL Draft on the Redskins Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube beginning at 8 p.m. on Thursday, April 23rd.
75 tons of game day trash and recyclables need to find a home. So, when the final whistle blows, our team hits the field. As an official partner for the Washington Redskins, RTS is connecting FedEx Field with smarter waste solutions to ensure a more sustainable and responsible approach to what's left behind at the end of a game. RTS, a better waste company. Find out more at rts.com.
To help during this time, Subway restaurants are offering a free footlong when you buy 2 family takeout special. Additional charges for extras, free sub of equal or lesser price at participating restaurants, no additional discount, not valid on delivery. Free delivery is also now available through all applicable providers in the market. Use promo code SUBWAYNOW to waive all delivery fees from your next purchase. Limited time only, select areas, $0 delivery fee, other services, fees, and limitations may apply. So we're talking about Coach Rivera's conversation at the virtual luncheon that he had today with fans and presented by the Loudoun County Chamber of Commerce. So we talked about the draft. We talked about free agency, I wanted to touch on a little bit off-season workouts because obviously the Redskins were supposed to start their off-season workouts on April 6th, and that was suspended indefinitely as a part of the league's response to the coronavirus. But earlier this week, you had the NFL and the NFLPA agree on a virtual workout program. So Coach Rivera really went in depth and gave us kind of a week by week, day by day breakdown of what they were going to do. So what did Rivera tell us, and what should fans expect for when these coaches and players are going to be communicating in the weeks to come?
Well, they're going to start Monday, and it's going to be a phase one sort of ideal that they're going along here. It's going to be a lot of classroom work, a lot of 2-hour instructional periods with the weight programs and all that stuff. And I think it's really going to be it's one of those things that you can't really avoid. It's one of those things that, like, well, we can't really meet with players, we can't really do all that stuff, but we can do it virtually, and we can find a way to at least have some sense of an off-season workout. And that's exactly what they've done here. And again, it's going to be a lot of classroom work, trying to get that playbook in, because they have to do something new on offense and defense. And it's going to be a really critical time for them. I think that's something that really has to be paid attention to for all players, both new and old comers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is especially important because there's a whole new coaching staff, like you said, learning a new offense and defense. So they're pretty much going to have 2 hours a day, 4 days a week for 3 weeks to really install this offense, install this defense. So while these workouts are voluntary, you would think as a player that, I mean, you would almost make it mandatory for yourself. Be like, hey, I need to know this offense, or I need to know this defense. I need to know these schemes, because who knows when you're going to be able to do that on-field practicing, working out. So I thought it was interesting that he said that they're not going to do any physical workouts online, or no virtual workouts.
Right.
I don't know if that means that maybe the strength and conditioning coach would send them stuff. I'd be curious to see what it is. I would assume that they would send him some kind of workout plan for maybe.
Yeah, you would think.
Right?
Yeah,
for like each position.
you would think that they're going to have some sort of program that they're going to institute, because they can't just have everybody just freelancing and doing their own workout program. That just doesn't seem like it's going to be what they normally do. So I would imagine that their strength and conditioning coach is going to have something that they send out, to everybody, to make sure that they're on the same progress every single day.
Yeah, I would assume that too. But it was really cool to hear. Also, they'll be doing a voluntary veteran mini camp, which is only allowed for new coaches. That'll be the 4th week of the program. So, and then I think it has to end by May 15th. So then from May 15th onward, not really sure what's going to happen, but it was good to hear from Coach Rivera about what the next steps are, how they're planning to get ready for the season. So just from your perspective, what do you think are the biggest things that need to happen for this team in the next month to make sure they're best prepared for whenever they come back?
Well, I think it goes back to having some sort of a workout program. And I think it also goes back to making sure the players are really on their stuff, in terms of making sure that they understand the offense and the defense. In a lot of ways, they're really on their own. I mean, you have some sort of guidance from the coaches through the virtual, tutoring sessions, I guess you could call them. But in a lot of ways, that you're really just learning it. You're learning it on your own. You have to rely on your own sort of study and your own sort of workouts. And I think that's something that's really going to test these players. And I mean, Coach Rivera has said that they're going to find out how really good they are when it comes to evaluating players for the draft. The players are going to figure how good they are in terms of discipline, in terms of keeping to an off-season workout program on their own and studying on their own, to figure out this whole new path that they have whenever they come back to the facility.
Yeah, for sure. So just before we get to draft stuff, breaking down the first round, the third round, I wanted to talk about what Coach Rivera said about leadership, because, I mean, it was the Virtual Leadership Luncheon. And, I mean, he's just a guy that there's so many people around the league and around his life that really look up to him as a leader. And that seems like it's played a huge part in the person that he's become. So, I mean, just based on what he said about leadership, how do you feel like that's kind of prepared him for this coaching job, or just how he goes about being an NFL coach?
Well, I feel like the biggest thing that he said was that he believes that leadership is an earned quality. I mean, he talked a lot about whether he believes that leaders are born or made, and he doesn't really believe that leaders are necessarily made like and born to be in that role. But he does believe that you need to take the responsibility when it is presented to you, and that seems like a big quality of how he's based his life, and it seems a big quality that he's learned from the other coaches that he's coached with and coached under. I mean, he talked about Mike Ditka, Andy Reid, Norv Turner. I mean, all these other guys, all the other great coaches in the NFL have the same quality and the same approach to how they view their position, how they view their leadership. Is that it's an earned quality. They're going to put you in the position to take that leadership, but you have to actually physically do it in order to earn the responsibility and the trust of him and the assistant coaches.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a couple other things with leadership, one of them pertains to the draft process. A really interesting thing that Coach Rivera mentioned was the thing that he likes the most when he's talking to prospects is them taking responsibility. So if they end up watching a play on film and I don't know, the prospect messed up or the play went for a negative gain or something, and the prospect takes responsibility, hey, that was my fault, I didn't do that right, instead of blaming others, that's something that he really looks for. And then he said one of the favorite questions that he likes to ask is, who are your mentors? What was your upbringing like? Who are your biggest influences? And I think that's a really effective way to just find out who these players are, what kind of characters they are, not just beyond what they do on the field. So I thought that was cool, kind of relating the leadership aspect back to the draft and kind of thinking about the kind of players that the Redskins are going to get in the draft. They're going to have a lot of those qualities that Rivera talks a lot about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. For sure. And I think if you want to look at a good player that Rivera wants to mold his new players around, just look at Thomas Davis. And I mean, that's the guy he brought in really early, and that's the guy that embodies leadership. I mean, ask anybody, ask his former teammates, ask his coaches, ask Coach Rivera. They all say specifically that he is a veteran guy and a great leader in the locker room. And I think that if you really want to see what the quality of the players that Coach Rivera is going to bring into this team in the next week and a half, with it ending on Saturday, look at Thomas Davis, and that's exactly what the kind of players that you're likely going to get. Sign up for FanDuel now and get $5 in total bonus. Just make your first deposit to get started, and you'll get an extra $5 in site credit. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app.
Whether from the sidelines or in the classroom, whether your chalkboard is for X's and O's or vocab words, whether you're a pro football coach or Mrs. Johnson at George Mason High School, the Washington Redskins believe in the power of great teachers. That's why we're partnering with youth entrepreneurs to bring Washington, D.C. teachers the resources they deserve. In response to the coronavirus pandemic, Youth Entrepreneurs has launched Teach Everywhere, a place for teachers to call home while adjusting to teaching at home. The resource contains distance learning activities, resources and tools, and a series of webinars from expert educators. Visit teacheverywhere.org to learn more.
Now more than ever, it's important to keep your car ready for anything. And at your local Honda dealer's service department, you're in safe hands. Safe hands that are expertly trained using only Honda genuine parts. Safe hands that will take every precaution to keep your car clean and sanitized. Safe hands that follow strict CDC guidelines, working with gloves and covering all commonly touched surfaces with plastic. And best of all, safe hands that will work on any make and model. Because with Honda, you and your car are in safe hands. Contact your local Honda dealer for more information.
All right, so we talked about Coach Rivera's leadership luncheon, and like we talked about, a lot of good stuff, a lot of insight on the draft, on off-season workouts. But we got to talk about next week and
Yeah,
who,
can't avoid it.
what picks the Redskins have, who they might be drafting. So I'm just gonna tell you right now. So next week we're planning on doing 7-round mock draft. Me against Zach. May the best man win. Let's see who's got the best mock draft. Maybe we'll put a poll out there afterwards or something.
All I'm
But
saying, you better bring it. You better bring it,
I'm
Kyle.
ready. I've been doing my research. I did way too much research on 3rd-round picks yesterday, so that's a good start. But so I thought of today we can kind of give a little teaser by talking about the 1st and the 3rd round. So I figured we'd play a little game, lighten the mood a little bit. So for the number 2 pick, or I guess the Redskins' 1st-round pick.
Yeah.
So three scenarios. So if they stay at 2, who do you think they're going to draft? If they trade back, who do you think they'll draft? And then what do you think they're going to do and why?
Okay. All right. So you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
I'm going to let you start. Yeah, let's see what
Okay.
you got.
All right. Well, if they stay at number 2, I think this is probably, in my eyes, the most obvious choice they can make, and that's choosing the defensive end out of Ohio State, one Chase Young.
That guy,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy, that stud, that freak on defense. I mean, and that's really all you got to say about him. I mean, he's a physical freak. I mean, he had 16.5 sacks last year. I mean, by now everyone's heard all the stats. Everyone has heard all the accolades and everything about him. But again, it's all warranted. And I think he's the best player in the draft, regardless of position, including, Joe Burrow out of LSU. And it's going to be, I mean, I think he's going to be there. I think he's going to be there for the taking. And he fits the mold of exactly what Coach Rivera wants out of his players. He's the kind of guy that can go in and change an entire team like he wants. And I think that's the biggest thing they're going. I think that's the most obvious choice that you have at number 2. Now, I can go. Let's see. We can go. If I want to go trade back, I'm going to show my bias here again, and I'm going to go a little unconventional. Against the grain, I guess you could say, and I'm going to go with Tristan Wirfs. I think that is a good option. I think, and I've said this before in some of my stories, that I think left tackle is an under talked, or not as much talked about as the other positions. And the reason of that being is, I think, Chase Young, I'm not Chase Young, but Trent Williams being in the situation that it is, it looks like he's going to be gone in some time. And if he's gone, that leaves an open position at left tackle. And they have guys that they want to test there, but why not bring in the best talent at the left tackle position? He originally was a right tackle, bring him in as a left tackle.
Yeah.
And I mean, first of all, the guy's an athletic freak. He's 320 pounds and runs a 4.85.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. He helped himself a lot at the combine for sure.
Have you seen the video of him jumping out of the swimming pool?
No.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean,
I got to see that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and he has an Iowa pedigree of just like Brandon Sheriff. I mean, we know all about Brandon Sheriff and where he comes from, and I think that like I said, he plays right tackle, but he played left tackle a little bit at Iowa. He can play the position if he needs to, and I think that if you bring him in there, he may or may not start immediately. I think he could. And I think you bring him in there, you shore up your entire offensive line. You're set at your starting 5. You have your blindside protection for Dwayne Haskins, and you roll with that offensive line going forward.
Okay. So what do you think they should do at number 2?
Take Chase Young. That's what I think they should do. Just take him and take the best player in the draft and figure it out on defense. Let that pass rush just get to quarterbacks and just terrorize offensive lines.
I agree. Okay, so I'll be quick because I think it's pretty obvious. I think at 2, you draft Chase Young. I think they should stay at 2 and draft Chase Young. But if they decide to move back, I would say draft Isaiah Simmons only because he can literally play anywhere. He can blitz off the edge. He can play linebacker. He can play safety. He can cover wide receivers, running backs. He can do anything that you want him to do. And I think in a draft that didn't have Chase Young, he would probably be the front runner to be that number 2 pick. So keep it short and sweet. Isaiah Simmons, whoever gets Isaiah Simmons is getting a heck of a player. But for this year, this draft, it's Chase Young to the Redskins. All right, 3rd round. So this is a little bit different because the Redskins aren't going to – I mean, we don't know, but, like, they're probably not going to either trade back or trade up their 3rd-round pick. So I guess just I won't make you say who exactly you think they're going to draft, but give me a couple options, maybe like your top 3 guys that you either could see him drafted or you'd like to see him draft with that 3rd-round pick.
Well, I really would like to see him draft Cole Kmet. I think that'd be a really good option. And you look at the tight end position, and they've got really 2 good guys that they're really strong in. They feel they've got, but Cole Kmet would really be a good 3 tight end, just trio that they could use there. I'm going to go down to the receivers because this is a really deep receiver class, and I'm going to pull out a little bit of what you wrote in your story and pick Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame. I think that's really going to be a good option, and I think you need to find a good number 2 option outside to put Terry McLaurin with, and I think he would be a really good option. I think there are a lot of players receivers in this draft who would be really good options. And on top of that, I'm going to go receiver again, another guy that you've talked about, Pittman. I've seen you talk about him on Twitter a little bit, and I think the thing I really have questions about with Pittman is that he might be into being a slot receiver. And the Redskins are kind of set at slot receiver with Harmon and Sims and all of that. But I think if you need a 5th receiver option, he's not a bad pick to have, really. And you throw him in there, you get him on some slant routes, and you let him catch the ball, do what he does best, and keep the chains moving. Those are 3 guys that I would love to see them go with.
Okay. So, I mean, I think both of those receivers you mentioned, those would at least one of those I would include in who they should pick. But I really think that the 3rd round is going to come, and I think the best player available is going to be a wide receiver because it's so deep. And obviously, the Redskins, I would say one of the Redskins' biggest need is wide receiver. So,
yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and assume that at 66, the Redskins are going to take a receiver. Claypool would be great. I think Michael Pittman would be great. I think even a guy like Brian Edwards out of South Carolina. But I think we just don't know. I just think the class is so deep that a receiver is going to fall, and whatever receiver that is going to be is someone that the Redskins are going to be able to select and really have contribute day one. So I won't give a specific other wide receiver yet, but some other options maybe. Adam Troutman out of Dayton, only because I don't think Cole Kmet's going to be there since he's like the number 1 tight end, and I just think he might be gone before the 3rd round, but he also might fall. So Adam Troutman, a guy out of Dayton who's he hasn't competed against the highest level of competition, but showed out well at the Senior Bowl. He could also be a guy that drops. And I feel like there's also a lot of tight ends in the 4th round range that so if I had to guess, I'm going to guess that they go receiver 3rd, and then they go tight end with one of their 4th round picks. But for this exercise, we'll just throw Troutman in there. And then offensive line, I'm going to throw out a tackle that I mentioned yesterday, Matt Pert out of UConn. So he's a guy that started all 48 games throughout 4 years at UConn. He's a guy that he's huge. I think he's 6'7", like 320 something pounds. He ran pretty fast at the combine. Not sure exactly what his numbers were, but he's a guy that could provide depth right now and really become a starter, whether it be next year, maybe next year. So really kind of a guy like Jerron Christian, where they drafted him in the 3rd round, expected him to be a starter. That hasn't happened yet, but maybe it happens with a guy like Matt Hurt. So he's another guy that could also fall, but it seems like from what I've seen, he's kind of been moving up, and people, the more people are talking about him, you could see him maybe go earlier. So those are my 3. I wrote 5 players to watch for the 3rd round. Check that out on redskins.com. We got 10 players coming out tomorrow for the 4th round.
Effort.
So, yeah, we're both doing 5. Spoiler alert, a lot more pass catchers because, let's be honest, the Redskins need some help for Haskins. But, yeah, that's all I got. If you got anything else to add, Zach?
The only I can say, well, I did bring out the Lego set again. I'll give you a little 10-second thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a Lamborghini today, the other day.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty cool.
That's slick.
Yeah, and the Redskins helmet the Lego that's a spoiler. The Redskins helmet Lego set that I ordered. It's going to come in next week, hopefully.
All right. You think you can finish it before the draft?
Oh yeah.
Right.
I mean, come on now.
All right, add that to your to-do list with all the other drafts.
Yeah, and other than that, just please, just make sure you subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcast, and give us 5 stars, and just spread us out as much as you can. Check us out on YouTube, and that's really all I have. Is just make sure we get all the shares out there, and I think we're just ready to go. I'm tired of talking about what might be for the draft. I'm ready to talk about what has happened. I'm ready to see who we pick.
I agree. One last thing, be sure to RSVP to the virtual draft party.
Yes.
It was just announced yesterday that Wale is going to be appearing. That's really cool. I think he's making some music videos for it too.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, the Redskins are really going all out with the virtual draft party. Like we said, interviews with coaches and players. Voice of the Redskins, Larry Michael will be running the show from Thursday to Saturday. So a lot of cool stuff, and it's obviously different than past years, but we're really trying to make it as normal and as seamless as possible. So we think it's going to be really cool. Tune in. You're not going to want to miss it. So that's all from me.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So, yeah, that's it for me. We'll be back here, I would say, next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
So we can get the mock draft out and see if people agree with us or not. So put your thinking cap on, Zach, because I'm ready.
I was born with the thinking cap on. I'm always ready. Let's go.
All right. But for now, stay safe, guys. Stay inside, and we'll see you next time. So for Zach Selby, Kyle Stackpole, this is The Rundown.
Dear customer service, I can always count on Novak. My power is always on, my payments always go through, and Novak actually cares about the community they serve.
Dear Novak, your electric costs are reasonable. Some electricity is from alternative sources, and cost reductions are passed along during the year. Thanks.
Novak, power you can count on.
As our nation battles COVID-19, every job in a medical facility is critical. Join the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, housekeeping, food service, supply techs, and other support staff. These people help save lives in medical centers, outpatient clinics, and community living centers. We're hiring in every state, and we've made the process faster. Will you join us on the front line? Visit va.gov/join us to find out how.
Work is work, but there's nothing like a good workout. Tennis, mountain biking, a good run, sweating off the week. That's what weekends are for. Of course, a misstep could put you out of commission. That's why Innova Sports Medicine is here for you. We treat your injuries and recovery like you're a pro. In fact, Innova is the official sports medicine partner of the Washington Redskins. See how we keep you on top of your game at innovasports.org.